This is David with High Performance Stoicism. I want to talk to you about 5 levels of action. 4 of these levels of action come from Grant Cardone, a very well known business influencer, and he talks about them in the context of what you need to do in order to do great things in your life. And so that's going to apply to our big topic of high performance stoicism. And the 5th level of action that I'm going to introduce today comes from Stoicism. So that wasn't one of the 4 that he talked about. And you're going to see why it's important to consider this 5th level of action that I will discuss, which I'll tell you right now is called wholehearted action. That's the result of practicing Stoicism consistently. And for anyone out there, you want to look at your life and see, okay, what level of action am I currently on in my life? And doing this will help you to make some decisions, improve what you do. So, the first level of action that Grant Cardone talks about is you are doing nothing. You're hanging out at home. You're on unemployment. You're living with your parents. Or maybe you're in a slump. So, you lost your job and you just haven't decided to get back on your feet yet. Either way, whatever the cause of the situation, you can see that there's something that is going to be very detrimental to your life if you stay in a state of not acting at all. The second level of action, sometimes you don't notice it, but you might be in retreat. And being in retreat doesn't mean that you're not doing a lot of the same things you were before, but you can see that you're retreating when you compare to what was going on, say maybe a month or 2 ago when you were really going for it. And yes, you're doing some of the same things. You're doing some personal development practices. You're going to work every day, but you can see a definite trend. You are in retreat. And so it's really good to recognize that so you can correct the situation as soon as possible. The sooner, the better. Now, the next level of action is the one most people who are going to work every day do. It's called normal action. So you go to your 9 to 5, you do your work. Maybe you also have a side hustle, you do a half hour of that a day. But overall, you are normal. And the way to see you are normal is you say, I am working hard. And then why do you think you're working hard? Because you look at, well, John is working the same amount. He's working hard. Dan is working hard. Bill's working hard. In other words, you find a lot of examples of hard workers, and you're one of them. And here's what Grant Cardone says about the normal level of action. He says, this is the most dangerous one to be on because you can stay in this mode for a long time. It could be for years, it could be for a decade. You are doing the work of a normal person every day, every week. And okay, that's a good thing. You should be proud of what you do, but that's not really going to get you where you want to go. And the fact that you see around you other people that are hard workers working on this level, that makes it seem like it's all right to do. But if you really want to go big in your life, do some great things, Grant Cardone suggests take massive action. And massive action has a few properties. Here are the most prominent ones. To take massive action, Grant Cardone has a simple formula. You 10x your current goals, and then you 10x your level of action. You're taking massive action. You're doing 10 times as much action as you did before. So let's say you have a sales job and your goal, just like last year, is to do $100,000 of sales. And that's pretty good. 6 figures is great. But then to really take massive action, you say, No, I'm going to go for 1 million. And then you 10x your goal. And after doing that, you say, okay, now I'm going to take the actions that will get me that result. And that's called massive action. You 10x the action you were doing before. Now, realistically speaking, I don't know that anybody's really doing 10x of what they were doing if they were operating at the normal level of action. Okay, if you were doing nothing, then 10xing it, that makes more sense. But the the number times that you times what you've been doing before, that's not really important, I believe. The real purpose of 10xing it and thinking of this number 10 is because it gets you excited. It gets you pumped up. It makes you keep going every day and not quitting. And so it doesn't really matter if you're just 2xing, 3xing, or 4xing with the thought, I'm going to 10x it. That's going to really move you into action. Now, in my view, there's a fifth level of action. It's called wholehearted action, or you could call it wholehearted stoic action, what you're going to do. And it's going to be much different than taking massive action. And there's different ways in which it's different. I'm going to explain that right now. The first thing when you start to practice Stoicism is you are going to be working on your mind as you're doing your work. You're working on your self control. You're putting yourself into a flow that is more productive. And what you're going to do is you're going to be a little more strict with yourself about distractions. So you're not going to allow yourself to be distracted. Another way you're going to be working on your mind is you're going to work on what thoughts you have. You're doing this in the process of doing your work and practicing Stoicism, which involves all the things you need to do to be a virtuous person. So that means, yes, you do have a lot of inner work to do, and you're careful about what you think, say to yourself, your self talk, what you think, and what you do, but you're not actually going necessarily for an explosion of action because what you want to do is take care of some things in the near future, such as your self control, such as your self talk, such as your capacity to use reframing, such as making sure that what you do is something you could be happy with at the end of the day, meaning you're going to work on the virtue of your actions and your thoughts. And the key to doing this, especially at the start, once you get into it, is you're going to be improving your mental state and your mental skills as you do this. In other words, you're not going berserk and then just crossing off a ton of things. You're definitely working on your mind. And so think about this. By doing this in the long term, you are going to be able to be more true to your aim. And so here's the second thing that's going to happen by stoic wholehearted action that, okay, it's not an explosion of 10xing. The second thing that's going to be involved in it is you're going to try to bring rationality into more of what you do. You're going to try to do certain things like this. You want to bring some more order into your life. You want to step back and see, am I doing things in an order that adds up to the best result at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month? And if you see that your thinking and your actions are in different directions, going in different directions, going through all these different moods. You don't want to do that. You want to stay steady at your work, but also do things in an orderly way. In addition to that, you want to look at what you're doing over the day and see, well, am I really following my priorities? Because one of the big things that I find with people, and I've found this with clients, is they think something is their priority and then they work hard all day. but they're spending less time on their priority than they think. So, prioritizing your priorities, hitting those and making sure you do enough of those every day, that's going to be a key for better results. So, in contrast to massive action, wholehearted action, moving toward that, is going to involve some work on your mind, getting the mental skills to make you an effective actor over time, and then making sure that practically everything you're doing is aligned with your overall goals. So you're becoming more rational in what you do. And then the result of that is going to be greater productivity. And I just had a client recently who told me that at the end of his working with me for 3 months under my high performance stoicism coaching, he said, I've my productivity has tripled just from working with you. And so productivity wasn't a big part of what we did. What we did was we worked on his mind, we worked on how he was organizing himself in order to make everything harmonize. So the result of wholehearted action, practicing stoicism and doing the things that make your life more orderly, make your mind more orderly, make your mind free of the things that are upsetting you, making you depressed, making you quit, that is going to have a huge result over time. And so at some point, someone who practices stoicism consistently is going to be doing something much like massive action, but it's not going to be scatterbrained. It's not going to be frantic. It's not going to be acting desperately to get everything done. It's not going to be filled with confusion. So that's why I say wholehearted action is a much better approach to becoming a high performance person than massive action. So that's it for my video. Like, subscribe, tell me what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.